company I worked for before before they went bankrupt. So they just transferred me to another division. But the girls here, pretty much.
Oh, by the way, just so we have a good...
Not video, but we are live now.
Okay.
On YouTube. It's
I'm just gonna double check.
Yeah. Double check.
And I was gonna say, we should post for our thumbnail. We all smile at the same time.
You can hear our audio.
I'm your co-host, Mike Al, and as always, I'm joined by...
Joshua Mervell, and today we are going to be talking about Secret Wars.
That's right,
the original
Marvel
Secret
Superhero
Wars.
Secret Wars.
Right.
From 1985, right? And we've got our constantly recurring guest host with us, G.I. Jolie.
What's up?
And we have our also constantly... I don't know what to call you, Bex Luthor.
She's your
You know
boy.
what? Yeah, it's me, your boy.
Yo, boy.
Yeah, that's right. Trash Queen.
It's me, your boy, Trash
Bex
Queen. What up?
Luthor.
I'm here to talk about another thing that makes everybody mad for some reason. Can't wait. I'm so excited.
This is going to be awesome. Okay, so let's talk about this comic book really quickly. I'm going to set it up. This is kind of the first... It's the second intercompany... it's the first ever big crossover, but it's the second time all the Marvel superheroes got together. Because the first time was Contest of the Champions, which Josh and I reviewed, and was not great.
No.
So they followed it. Marvel Comics followed it up with another not great comic book called Secret Wars. Apparently, Jim Shooter saw the sales success of DC's toys and the He-Man toys and the Star Wars and G.I. Joe, and he decided, you know what, we should do a Marvel superheroes toy line. And the idea was, well, we should have a comic book to go with it. And so this is what Jim Shooter came up with. Okay.
What
Apparently
a smart guy.
He's a smart guy in a way. There was research done into what kids really like, and apparently kids like wars and they like secrets. So they just put those together, and here we go, Secret Wars. I don't know what to say about this other than that What's that?
I guess if it works, it works.
Yeah, well, I can also say that sales for this comic book were better than any in like the previous 25 years. So sales-wise, it was a success. We are here to determine whether or not the actual quality of the comic was a success.
Right.
I'll just say that I read it a few times before this. I tried to read it for this episode, but it was a struggle to get through. My word. I don't even know where to go from here. Joshua Mervell, you can take it for a minute. You tell me, is this the first time you've read this comic?
I thought it was the first time I read this comic, and then as I was reading it, more and more started to become, like, familiar to me. Like, I'm pretty sure I've read some of it, or at least parts of it, or maybe it's just through, like, osmosis that I know all this information, just from, like, other comics, or, like, looking up the origins for certain characters and stuff like that, and maybe, like, reading bits and parts here and there. So I guess this is my first time. I didn't hate it, though. I thought that there were some pretty good moments, and then there were also some, like, really awful, hard to get through moments. So, I mean, I think for what it is, being this, like, grandiose, big mashup of all the characters, like every Marvel character in one comic, I think it was pretty good, because we've kind of learned that they don't really handle that too well when they just mash characters together. I mean, even with Marvel Team Up, we can't even see them do two characters in a comic well together. Right. And then with Contest of Champions, that was just like a total mess, and it was really just like action figures being bashed together. So this one at least had some sort of like depth and story going on. As light as it was, at least it was something.
It was something. G.I. Jolie, what do you think? Was it something? Or was it nothing?
Oh, you muted yourself.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm just muted. Well, it surely wasn't nothing. And it definitely wasn't something. Oh, no. Do you know what? It definitely was something. You know what? It wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible. I didn't make it to the end.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
you finish it though.
I didn't make it to the end. I mean, I made it to number 9, stopped, and then skipped right to the end. So I was like, if I do that, am I going to really miss anything? If I just like read some synopses, and I think I got the gist of it. I liked some of the ideas that happen in the story. Some of the like really superhero type things that happen are like hilarious. A lot of the humor in some of the writing and some of the characters is really fun, but I mean, yeah, I wouldn't put this like on a top 10 list or anything. I wouldn't even put it on like a top 25, 50.
So yeah, people come here for in-depth analysis, and that's why we've got Bex Luthor here to help us out. So
what are you
Bex,
doing to me, man?
What
You
an
set me up for
intro.
failure.
tell us about your experience. This is your first time reading it, right?
Like Josh said, it was my first time reading it through, but I feel like I know it from other things.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I would scroll past and be like, oh, I know these pages from just seeing them online out of context, or like, oh, I know some of these characters like have referenced this for some reason. This is in the main continuity. So I kind of knew what I was getting into, and then didn't at all by the time I was like, oh, issue 2. I was like, oh, Secret Wars, yeah, right. I didn't look up like anything about it at first. I was like, oh, this is one of those like classic Marvel comics, right? Like it's a big deal.
Yeah.
No, no, it's not. It's hard to kind of like explain what happens, but basically nothing happens.
Yes, that's my take as well.
Except
Should we talk? Except what?
Except She-Hulk joins the Fantastic Four.
And Spidey gets a new costume.
Oh, Spider-Man does get it, but again, these things, none of these things are because of Secret Wars. They just happen to happen.
So, okay, let's briefly back up a little bit, okay? So let's talk about the premise very briefly is... Gia, Julie, do you want to talk about the premise? Or do you want me to talk about the premise?
Sure. I mean, I'll talk about the premise. I'll talk about it right from Wikipedia.
Sure.
So
That's
I
why
guess,
people come here.
yeah, right? I mean, we are deep diving as far as Wikipedia will allow us. So I guess some kind of being named the Beyonder has gotten a group of heroes and a group of villains and kind of taken them and transported them to this world, outer space. He
Sure.
eventually creates a planet called Battle World, where
So rock
he
and roll.
expects,
Yeah, I know.
right?
For the Secret War to happen on Battle World.
Yeah, it's very metal of him to transport them here, and the idea is that they will perhaps battle it out. I don't know. Maybe I want the planet to be a misnomer, but anyway, it's really funny though because all of the heroes get there in their respective magazines by stumbling into Central Park and finding this huge like compound constructed building. I don't know. They all see it. They all approach it. That's how they get transported. So it stands to reason that the villains also did the same thing. I don't know, including Galactus.
Some
and
of them,
Magneto.
I think they said it. They transported some, and some came willingly. That was that's the wording.
Okay, cool. So what the Beyonder does is he takes parts of worlds and parts of planets, and creates that battle world and tells the villains, if you can off all of the superheroes, I'll give you everything within my ability, within your wildest dreams. So that's kind of the jumping off point. And so
it's kind of a
Battle.
less complex version of a WWE match, right?
Yeah.
It's like WWE, but not as complex.
I mean,
It's like Hell in a Cell cage match.
Oh.
It's just
Yeah.
There's
Contest
just
of
as much
Champions
drama
too.
and romance.
Right?
Right.
It's just Contest
So,
of Champions.
and totally. And to set this up, like, there's two things I want to mention. First, I want to mention Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was happening at almost the exact same time as this. Crisis, for all its flaws, had a very complex story and had long-lasting effects, permanent effects on the DC universe. This, I think, began before Crisis, but the difference in ambition is like this, right? Like, this is literally a toy commercial. At the end of all of the comics, I think it was May 1984, I think, All the superheroes found this big device in Central Park, including Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, the Avengers, all of them. They all went into this thing. Then the next issue, they all came back. And as we know, because we do Spider-Cast, Spider-Man came back with a black costume. The Fantastic Four came back without the thing. They came back with the She-Hulk. There might have been a
Kitty
few
Pryde
other...
dump Colossus or something.
Yeah, Colossus. I don't remember exactly. If it was...
cheated on her, so she dumped him.
Right. And so then you had to start reading Secret Wars from number 1 all the way to number 12, over 12 months, to find out how all of these plot developments happened.
Those poor 80 plebeians. Feels so bad. You have to wait a whole month.
I mean, I don't know where to start. We're certainly not going to go issue by issue, but we at least should dive into number 1, right? Let's talk about number 1, because this is where everything's set up, and this is where our troubles began, okay? Josh, can you... actually, before we get into the story, Josh, can you bring up the cover for number 1?
Yeah.
Because, I mean... we could probably save the specifics of the writing of the story for later, but we've got to mention the fact that most of the issues, not all, are drawn by Mike Zeck, who had a lengthy run on Captain America, and whom I was introduced to as a kid as the cover artist for G.I. Joe. Absolutely one of the best cover artists in superhero history. For sure, he's a great action artist. In this comic, he was hampered by the fact that Jim Shooter, whom we all love, made him redraw page after page after page to be more plain and to be more eye level and to be more straightforward, because Jim Shooter has a very specific opinion about how comic books should be done, and at one point his opinions lined up with everybody's, and then at another point they misaligned so much that everyone at Marvel hated his guts and quit and went to DC. And he got fired. Anyway, but he's a good guy though. I like him. Josh, do you have that number 1 yet, or
yeah? For some reason, that's the only one I don't have.
Oh, because I moved it to a different folder, and then it was in a different folder, and then I put it in the other folder. If you want, do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, sure. Why don't you share your screen real quick?
Okay. So as our millions of listeners stand by, or millions of viewers, I'm just going to open up the thing here. And I am going to open up number 1. How do I do this? Okay, screen share, right?
Yeah, sure. Here, I can...
screen share.
Also just screen share it for you.
Oh, okay, sure. Let's just go live.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Oh shit! I think I'm going live twice. Oh, I just swore too. I think that means we're profane now. Should I stop that stream? Because I think I'm streaming like 2 things now. Oh boy. Okay. Okay, we just lost 500,000 viewers. Hold on.
Well, that's okay. We'll get them back. We'll get them back. Once we start talking about Spidey and underwear, I think we'll be back on.
Yes, that's topic number 2.
Okay,
topic number 1 is the cover to Secret Wars number 1, which we cannot figure out how to show.
They could Google it.
Yeah, okay,
That's
so if
true.
you're at home right now, just Google Secret Wars number 1 cover, and you'll know exactly what we're talking about here, okay? If everyone else has this on their computer, including our guests here, I honestly think this cover is one of the best images I've ever seen of all the Marvel superheroes together.
Okay, I got it here.
I think it's spectacular. The momentum of the characters coming towards you, the perspective of the characters is perfect, in my opinion. Josh, what do you think of this cover?
Yeah, it's great. I think that it's like the perfect image to showcase like everybody. It's also just like, I don't know how else you would fit everybody all together, but somehow they do it. So I really enjoyed this one.
G.I. Jolie, does this thing excite you the way it does Josh and I?
Does it make my pants parts tingle?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking.
Is that what you're asking?
That's not what I'm implying.
Well,
I want to know.
Oh, okay.
I was about to be profane as well, but yeah, no.
No.
I know. I said yes, and I was like, I can't even think of a good follow up kind of joke. Nothing. It's good.
I think
it's fine. Huh?
Fine.
it's fine. Okay, Bex Luthor, what do you think?
I just noticed Mr. Fantastic's not on the cover.
I think he was added in the later. There's like the second version where they added in Kitty Pryde, and I think they added in Mr. Fantastic as well.
Interesting.
He's in the back wearing about a pregnancy storm. That's what he's doing.
Also,
Ooh,
wait,
the storms are brewing.
isn't that the wrong costume for Janet as well? Isn't she wearing like green and purple throughout the
Yeah,
entire
she's
series?
not wearing that one.
There is actually a lot of continuity errors in this story where, for example, Professor X had started walking in the X-Men. He shows up in a wheelchair. Wasp was in a different costume. There's a couple other ones I forgot about. But basically, they had to explain it in the second issue by saying that the Beyonder transported the heroes, and his impression of the characters is how they appeared on Battleworld, which is ridiculous, right? But it's okay. We can forgive it. Like, this is Jim Shooter writing every single Marvel character, even though he was not a regular writer on any of these series other than Avengers at one point. So he did know how to write X-Men. He did know how to write Spider-Man, which we can get into. But I want to talk about... Okay, let's talk about the writing in this comic, okay? Sure. Josh, are you able to show the page where all the superheroes introduce each other?
Yeah. Let's see.
Okay.
Is it this one here?
Now,
the war begins.
It's the one where it's the one after that where there's a tiny panel at the top where all the superheroes are standing next to each other, introduce themselves, and the bottom panel is a big shot of Galactus and all the other villains.
Okay, yeah, that one's on right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this dialogue. Now, Jim Shooter is kind of known as a divisive figure in the industry. He's somewhat of a genius in that he became a professional writer for DC at age 13. No joke. He started writing Legion of Superheroes at age 13. So we know that he's talented. We know that he's got smarts. But this is some of the worst dialogue I've ever read in a comic book, okay? I don't know, is it just me, or did this strike all of you as an odd way to introduce all the characters? To have them introduce each other as if they've never met and as if they're not all world-famous superheroes. Anyone have an opinion about that?
Well, it's a commercial, right? Like, you're just introducing a toy line. So it's like, I'm Iron Man. You know what this reminds me of? The Fantastic Four movie we saw. Well, if it isn't Johnny Storm. Like, exactly that. I was like, oh, memories. Good memories. Or bad.
I mean,
but yeah.
If they wanted to... Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that it's just like them expecting their audience to have never picked up a comic book.
Right. I mean,
but I don't know how you can tell who everyone is with this teeny tiny little picture.
Yeah, it's tiny. I mean, another thing too is like, if you want to make it like a commercial, why not just like go for it? Like, it's so like half-assed and like just like of like an introduction for all of them. Like, I'll start. Everybody knows us because we're the Mighty Avengers. But like, why not just have them like appear in groups and have like the narration be like, the first to appear are the Avengers. There's Iron Man and Captain America, the leader, and kind of do it that way, and then have them like kind of just appear one by one.
An omniscient narrator, right? Like a narrator,
and then they can kind of just like acknowledge each other, like in between that, like Wolverine or the rest of the X-Men here, and like, you know, like have that kind of back and forth. It just feels so like sitcom-y almost. Like, I can almost hear like a laugh track as they like walk on and like, yeah. But it's
like, and I'm the Thing, and everyone's like, woo,
yeah, totally. This is like Mary Tyler Moore show. Okay, I'm gonna read a couple of these. I mean, we're not gonna read the whole story, just this one
story time.
No.
Yeah,
17-hour live stream.
I've got to read this though. Okay, so the Wasp is standing there, and she says, "I suggest that we first find out something easier, like who all is here." I'll start. Everybody knows us because we're the Mighty Avengers and we're famous. But just in case, I'm the Wasp, and with me are the She-Hulk, Captain Marvel, Captain America, Thor, Hawkeye, and Iron Man, who's really on leave, but is with us anyway. I, by the way, hate that. When they have to specify that someone's on leave, or they're like a reserve member, but they're here with us, they have to specify. I hate that. Professor X. I'm Professor X. These are my X-Men. He introduces them all. And then, of course, I'm the Hulk. By the way, the Hulk's intelligent in this story. Then Spidey says, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man at your service. And then the Thing says, we're the Fantastic Four minus Susie, the invisible girl to you. Stretcho calls himself Mr. Fantastic, if you can believe that. This Crumbs, the Human Torch.
Mean.
And I'm the Easter Bunny. Yeah, it's so bad. It's not witty, it's not funny, it's nothing.
Right.
It's really bad.
It's just extra weird too. Like specifically the Iron Man line is really weird because like, isn't the whole point of Rhodey taking over so that nobody knows that Iron Man isn't missing and not there?
Good point.
So like, why even bring that up? Like, oh, he's actually on leave, so this is a different dude in the suit. Like, why not just say Iron Man or like that? Even like I think makes my ID even stronger of like having the narrator be like, this is Iron Man, but it's Rhodey, or like, you know, like explain what's going on. It's just weird to have Janet confess that. Also, we did lose Jolie.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I went to the stream and it says her camera's off, but she's off here too.
Yeah, so
no, I'm still here. Sorry, guys.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
it's just your videos.
I'm just taking care of business off camera.
Okay.
Well,
Sorry.
So,
I was gonna say also adding on to Josh's point, I don't understand why there wasn't a narrator, because in other parts of the story there are.
right.
So like, why not? If only they had some sort of omniscient character in this story that could narrate things. But they didn't do that, so.
Even have the Beyonder come in and introduce everybody. Yeah. Like, it's weird that they know each other and they're still like, hey, everyone, I'm the Thing. So,
you know, for all the criticisms of Crisis on Infinite Earths was confusing and convoluted and full of plot holes. But at least it had a nice omniscient narrator voice from Marv Wolfman. And it did such a good job of introducing you to every aspect of the DC universe, that to the point that it made you want to find out more. It would give you a little glimpse of Gorilla City, a little glimpse of this, a little glimpse of that. This comic is the opposite. It takes all the superheroes and villains out of the Marvel like main Earth and then puts them on this battle world and just has them fight each other. Mm-hmm. So I would actually argue this is kind of one of the reasons I don't like to pit one company against another, but for one, I do not read superhero comics to watch people fight, and I don't when you read these Facebook pages where they're like, man, who would win in a fight between the Hulk and Superman? I block those people because I'd never read a superhero story to find out who wins in a fight because I'm not 6, but. You know, that's what this story, the premise is based on, is just superheroes fighting for 12 issues. And so I think that's my main issue with it. And I don't know. I mean, we're still talking about intros, but it kind of just gets worse from here.
It is a story for a toy advertisement, and toys are for children. So it makes sense that this story is very much structured in that, like, good guys, bad guys. But then they add a bunch of convoluted stuff that, like, either you have a simple... like, everyone comes and fights and then goes home story, or you don't. You have a complex story about characters. You can't have both.
Right.
And that's the biggest flaw of this, is they try so much to shoehorn so much characterization and so much plot into a story that initially didn't have any plot. And I think that's the other thing when you compare, like, this to Crisis, right? Where I feel like with Crisis, they wrote down what was maybe going to happen, and with this one, they were just like, well, just... write it as we go.
They wrote it down. Imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean even
storyboards.
Even like it really does feel like that. I mean, particularly, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit later on too. But like with Colossus and this love interest, like alien love interest character, it's really weird. Especially since like there's this weird dream sequence earlier on when he's like dreaming about Kitty Pryde, and then Professor X like comes into his mind and interrupts his like wet dream he's having about Kitty Pryde, and then all of a sudden they just like reintroduce a new love interest for him, and then halfway through they're like, this doesn't seem right. So then Wolverine has to come in and explain like, oh, it's just a side effect from that woman's healing powers. But then like she falls in love with him too. And it's just so like mashed together. Like they did it because that's what they needed to do for that issue, and they didn't think about what was happening later on. And you could tell that it was written month to month and not as a whole and then divided up for each issue. At least that's what it seemed like to me.
It's
That's
like
the
one
thing
of
is,
the.
I mean, we don't.
Oh,
Go
sorry,
ahead,
go
Becca.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, we don't really know. I mean, I don't know how Shooter wrote it, but it is kind of, I mean, in my opinion, if this was 4 issues long, I could forgive it, but 12 is ridiculous. Right?
Yeah.
What were
Yeah, I
you say,
think-
Becca?
Even before
Oh,
we went
sorry.
live, just to that point, like even before we went live, I said to Becca, if they would have done this in 4 issues, it probably would have been better. This 12 issues of whatever that was, it could have been 4 for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's the
many
things, like-
makeouts in 4 issues, Jolie. We have to have everybody making out with everybody. Every girl
Well-
needs to make out with at least 1 to 2 to 3 men in this
Mhm.
story.
And Dr. Doom's got to conjure 2 women to make out with.
There wasn't enough female Marvel characters. Let's make 2.
Mhm.
But they're both in bikinis.
Yes. And they're both from Denver.
Denver, Colorado. Shout out. Stupid. Oh my god. Sorry. A lot of the decisions are dumb. It feels like back to when we were talking about Colossus, I was just gonna say, I was like, it's the dumbest way that Marvel's ever broken up a marriage before the marriage happened to try to keep their characters not married. Like, how many times has a Spider-Man wedding been disrupted? Who knows anymore? But like, they really that's what you're gonna do to break up Kitty Pryde and Colossus, a romance that's been going on for decades. They're like, have him cheat on her for some reason.
Yeah. Like, ooh, intergalactic
was only-
brouhaha. Let's throw her in here.
She's pretty.
Mhm.
I think it was only about 5 years at this point, the romance, or less. But still, I get your point, though. And also, I wonder how upset Chris Claremont was with that. I mean, I wonder if he knew really that that's what Jim Shooter had planned for Colossus, right? Because
He 100% rolled his eyes into another dimension.
Right.
He had to have. I mean, I did.
I just couldn't believe it. I was like, yeah, Johnny making out with some alien babe, sure, whatever. He's single, he can do whatever he wants. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, they're real. This is really how they're gonna break this couple up. Is like, and he's not even gonna be like, oh, I should have done that. It was just a side effect. I'm just gonna break up with my fiance. Like,
Right.
I don't.
Mhm.
It's frustratingly bad writing for something that previously wasn't. I don't know.
Well, let's briefly talk about the women, because in issue 3, Becca, we talked about this before we rolled. We've got 2 new, because like you said, there wasn't enough women. Like, Invisible Girl's sidelined because she's pregnant.
Of course, typical woman.
Scarlet Witch, where's Scarlet Witch? She's not here. I guess she wasn't a member of the Avengers at the time.
Right.
So
But
that's the thing.
Magneto's
I don't-
there.
Yeah.
Magneto's there. The Wasp is
Magneto
there.
is
So-
there
Magneto
to make it
is
with the Wasp.
there.
Magneto
you know-
is there because they wanted to sell a toy of Magneto, and
Making out with the Wasp.
and to do that they needed to make him a hero so kids would buy the toy. So this is like the first time they tried to like shoehorn him into being a hero.
It makes sense.
It was kind of, to be honest, it was a little bit of a gradual thing with Chris Claremont. I think before this, he'd already introduced the idea of him being a Holocaust survivor and the backstory with Professor X and Magneto. But I don't know how much of that was Jim Shooter's idea and how much of it was Chris Claremont approving it. Probably not at all. But in number 3 of Secret Wars, we are introduced to... we forgot about Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau. She's also in this.
Yeah, she's there. Miss Marvel's
Right.
not here. For
You're
some
right.
reason.
I think she was gone by this point. I think she was retired
she,
at
like-
this point.
Or is she binary? Or is she like... I can't remember when all this stuff
Yeah,
happens.
I think she's...
Is she like in space?
Yeah, I think she's in space. But we are introduced to... What's her name? Volcana
Volcana and Titania.
Titania, who didn't... I mean, they didn't really go anywhere, right? Like, I don't think anyone knows who they are today, right? So they didn't really...
Titania's been in a lot of stuff as like a secondary side character. She ends up marrying Absorbing Man and they have like a thing. So she's
Okay.
usually with him in that kind of sense. The last thing I remember reading about her was she like had a cameo in the Almighty Thor, the Jane Foster Thor comic series.
Mhm.
And she does fight the She-Hulk a lot in like the 90s and stuff. Like they just have two like big ladies punching each other, and that's fun. But Volcana is not. She doesn't do anything. She just finds a man and then retires. Which, good for her. She deserves to.
I mean, it's every woman's dream. So,
Yeah,
just live in it.
The thing is, Go ahead, Becca.
I just was say me and my molecule man hanging out in my apartment in Denver, Colorado, like living the dream.
Right.
Such a weird relationship, eh? Like, and I noticed that when Jim Shooter wrote Starbrand, he kept mentioning Kenneth Connell's therapist a lot, and I noticed that Owen Reese, is his name Owen Reese, the molecule man, he keeps talking about his therapist. Mm-hmm. I'm going to assume Jim Shooter was in therapy at the time, because this is like a running theme in all the stories at this point. It's also kind of the dynamic between Molecule Man and who is it, Volcana?
Yeah.
Yeah, is interesting because she's sort of, more, what's the word?
A big, punchy
strong
lady.
woman. And
Taller.
he is like this diminutive, short, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Nerd.
Yeah, like total nerd. And it's just funny, that dynamic there. I don't know. It's unique, I guess, right?
Right. I mean, I think they even talk about it too. Like, I think Titania or whatever her name was, she like pokes fun at the fact that like she always like finds like weaker, scrawny dudes and like falls for them to like be like the motherly, like caring figure, which is weird. Like, it's a weird thing to even bring up, I think, in the story. Just like, let the love happen. Like, do we need an explanation as to like why she's into scrawny dudes? It's just weird. But,
well, and I wish we had time to talk about every issue and all the story, but I'm going to touch on a couple things I noticed. Did you guys feel that the cliffhangers of every issue were really anticlimactic and did not want to make you read the next issue? Because I did.
Honestly, I wasn't like, I would read them and then go, oh, it's the end. Anyway.
Exactly. Like, for example, I'm looking at number 4 right now. On the last page, they notice that Galactus, who's been completely immobile for like 3 issues, they look up and they're like, and Mr. Fantastic says, what? He moved! Galactus moved! Then there's a panel of Galactus, and then it cuts back to Mr. Fantastic, and he says, oh, no, no! And then it says, next, the Battle of 4 Armies. That's it.
Yeah, that's
how
awful.
Every issue ends.
It's
like they ran out of pages.
But wasn't there a cliffhanger where Janet dies?
Yeah, but then she comes back, so
she
cares,
does, right? Yeah. But I was surprised. I will say there are some things like that where I was like really curious to see where they were going to go. Like with Doctor Doom just being like ripped apart. That was pretty crazy. Like, I was like kind of like taken aback because everything had been so like surface level, everything happening with just like characters fighting or like running to secret bases or people falling in love with random people. So to have like a character be like torn apart was pretty crazy to see. And then even like Janet dying, like they killed her and then threw her out of a tank and drove off. Like, it was pretty kind of like visually jarring, I guess, at times.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that was like some horror movie shit. They flung her lifeless. Not only did they, I mean, they're on a whole planet, and they rolled that tank to the good guys' headquarters, and they flung her lifeless body out the hatch. They're like, here you go. I'm like, and not only that, but like the way that they killed her, that was like even worse. Because it was like that scene in, spoiler alert, 20 plus years later, in Buffy, where you see a character get shot through the freaking chest. And it's like, did that just happen? And it's blood everywhere, and it's like, okay, yeah, I guess it did.
I mean,
and then the lizard's like, no, the only girl that's ever been nice to me.
I mean,
yeah, by the way, before we started, I mean, go ahead, Josh.
I was just gonna say, even later on with like She-Hulk being like beat up by the entire gang. Like, you see, like, in the frame, some people are kicking her, some people are, like, hitting her with crowbars, and, like, all at the same time as she's, like, in the fetal position on the ground. Like, just some of it felt like a lot.
Yeah, well, if you read Starbrand, I think it's very clear that Jim Shooter has a, quote, complicated relationship with women, or opinion of women. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Becca.
No, I did notice that it's only really the women in the comic that get, like, detrimentally hurt, besides Doctor Doom after he becomes God, obviously. Because men can only be harmed once they've reached an unattainable level of power. But can we just talk about Janet for a second? And,
Sure.
And everything that happens to her in the 2-day span that this comic... 2 boyfriends, like, leader of the Avengers, but nobody listens to her. We're just gonna give it to Captain America anyway. She gets fridged, like, halfway through, and they don't even give a shit about her. Like, in the swamp, dead. She becomes friends with the lizard. She just does, like, a breath of water, like, makes, like, is friends with the swamp man, and, like, he protects her. Everything that happened to her was, like, just textbook comic book garbage. Except, you know what? I can't berate her too much, because if Magneto was like, girl, I'd be like, yes, there.
Well, Jim Shooter
I
is
get
also...
I get that part, but...
Jim Shooter's also the one that wrote the infamous Avengers 200. You remember that one, right? Where Ms. Marvel...
Oh, the sexual assault of Miss Marvel.
Right. That's Jim Shooter as well. So like I said...
that's why the name was familiar.
Did he
yeah.
also write Hank beating Janet, too?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
He did, yes, I think he did. I'd have to double check that, but I think so.
Yeah.
We have someone in the comments saying that Shooter's run on the Avengers is also way better than this story. Is that what you're also talking about, Mike?
Yeah, Jim Shooter did write Avengers for a long time, and it was a fairly critically acclaimed run. He did the Korvac saga, which a lot of people liked. However, we did review 2 or 3 issues of this on Flea Market Fantasy, and we were not huge fans of it. So, I mean, I am a Jim Shooter fan. I love his Legion of Superheroes, but I don't know. I mean, he's got an inconsistent history of writing comic books.
Yeah, so sorry. If you have a question, definitely feel free to leave it. Unfortunately, there's a huge delay. Not a huge delay, but there is a delay. So the reason why we're not getting back to you, Video Screamer, is that you're not asking us any questions. You're just kind of giving us information, and it's kind of passing us by. We're so sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, feel free to comment, or if you're watching on YouTube, or if you've found the link on Twitter or Facebook, if you want to comment on the posts or anything like that, feel free. We'll keep an eye on those as well.
Yeah, I mean, this person is making a lot of great points about the things that we're saying. Unfortunately, we're saying it and a minute or so. I don't know how long our delay is. It's like 30 seconds to 60 seconds.
Right.
Yeah, so we're missing them. I'm so sorry.
I will point out, yes, I confirm Jim Shooter did write the story where Hank backhands Janet Van Dyne. So yes, there seems to be a pattern here. He also wrote Starbrand where Ken Connell called his girlfriend stupid consistently. Anyway, Becca, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say maybe then Janet should leave him for Magneto, because I would. He's Magneto. But, like, can we not call Jewish men Hitler? Can we just not do that? Can that not be a thing? Like, that's something that really upset me in this comic. I was like, okay, so, like, I get it's the 80s, but, like, how about we just don't go there? I don't know. I don't feel like that would fly today.
Good point.
It was like, I couldn't believe it. I was, like, on Janet's side that whole time, and I was like, girl, get over it. Bye.
I know that before we went live, we briefly mentioned the lizard. I know you guys got a lot to say about the lizard. Does anyone want to talk about the lizard in this comic? Becca or G.I. Jolie?
I have 3 words to say about the lizard.
Okay.
Who is she?
Who is she?
What's that?
Who? Lizard who?
Yeah, the lizard's not important in the comic at all.
Well, the lizard is important. Well, he's not
No.
important, but he's around.
He's, and then he's in the swamp for a bit, and then he's in jail for the rest.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is he like? Isn't he a Spider-Man villain?
He's
Yeah,
Dr.
he's-
Kurt Connors.
Classic
He's-
main Spider-Man villain.
I
But
think-
he'd been cured for years, or a couple years, and then they brought him back here because they wanted to sell a toy of him.
See, that's I think the thing that I have a problem with is that everybody's allowed to go back and forth if they have like a different form. Like Thing is able to swap from being the Thing to being human, even though that's not something he can normally do. The Hulk, I don't remember if Hulk ever does it, but Hulk, that's something that the Hulk can do. And to just bring Kurt Connors in and like keep him trapped in the lizard form seems really weird, since from what I know of the lizard, it's like he has to like maintain that like serum, right, or something. Like he has to like keep taking the thing to stay in the lizard form. So it's just weird that he was like stuck in this like monster form the entire time and wasn't able to help anybody out. I don't know.
We know why. It's just to sell the toys, right?
Right.
The in-universe context is like, oh, it's whatever you want on Battle World, maybe? Kind of? Has something to do with desires?
Right.
We don't know. But then, like, why would Kurt Connors desire to be the lizard when he could just be a man?
Right.
But if we could talk about why they chose the characters that they did, and it's all just to sell toys, right? Like
100%,
Yeah.
yes.
specifically, so they just picked like the coolest looking ones because like the villain's choices don't make any sense.
Yeah, like, for example, why is the Wrecking Crew there? When the Wrecking Crew were not big villains in any sense of the word, right?
Because
Like,
then that's 3 toys.
Right.
well, but also, you know what? We should actually point out something. Like, okay, I'm gonna say, for example, where's Hobgoblin? Like, Hobgoblin, right, was the main super villain of Spider-Man at the time. So why was he not included? But I believe there was a toy of him, and I'm going to look this up to double check. But I think there was a Hobgoblin toy.
Well, I mean, he forgot to wander into Central Park with the rest of them. Obviously, that's why he is not there.
Wasn't
But
Hobgoblin
it's funny 'cause-
out by that time? Like, didn't the like van already crash into the lake?
Well,
At this
but hey,
point-
if they can make Kurt Connors the lizard
I
again,
mean,
they
sure.
can make Hobgoblin, right?
And Doom was
But-
dead.
but he's
right?
presumably
Before
Right.
this.
dead.
Dr. Doom
Oh.
was dead at this point, yes.
Really?
And also, I just
Okay.
I got to point out quickly, they also made toys of, what's it called? Baron Zemo, who was not in this, right? I got to make sure I'm looking at official toys here, because I don't think I am. But they made Hobgoblin. They made... Oh, did you guys notice Daredevil was missing? He's not in this story at all. He's the biggest character that's not in the story. It's really weird.
Maybe he can't survive on
Right.
World's atmosphere.
Also noticed Doctor
Maybe.
Strange too was a
I'm
big
just
one that
making
was
shit
not
up.
included.
That's a good point. Why was Doctor Strange not
'Cause
there?
he
You're
was-
right. I mean, granted, his comic, I think, was canceled at that point, but
wasn't
they
the
still could have tried to
Defenders
sell
going on?
toys of him, right?
Like
The what?
the Defenders is going on right now, though. No.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I don't know if he was a member at that time. But maybe one of our viewers or our listeners can help us out with that. But
Yeah.
there's definitely characters that should have been in it that were not, and there were toys that were made of characters that were not there. But I think as far as that topic goes, we're almost exhausted. So I'm going to jump to the reason that we're actually reviewing this story. Does everyone remember why? It's because Spider-Man finally gets summer wear, right?
Yeah, we're talking about short shorts for those hot Brooklyn nights.
Well, yeah, because his apartment clearly does not have central heating,
Right.
air conditioning.
Yes, right. It gets too hot in there, so.
Yeah. I mean, he's only got that skylight to open for a breeze.
So this is the story where we discover how Spider-Man got his alien black costume, okay? And as we've explained in other episodes of the show, of Spider-Cast, Spider-Man got the costume in Amazing Spider-Man 252, and then you had to buy Secret Wars to find out how he got it. The ironic thing is that by the time number 8 came out, he already got rid of the costume and discovered that it was an alien. It was a big mess behind the scenes. We won't get into that. Yeah, we'll just say that we've already discussed the origin of the costume in another episode, so we won't talk about that. But I got a question for Gia, Julie, and Becca, and Josh. Gia, Julie, did you know that Spider-Woman existed with a costume almost exactly like the black costume Spider-Man?
Not that one. No, I'm only familiar with the red costume Spider-Woman, unless they're the same broad.
No, there's like a bunch of different Spider-Womans, and this is
the one from Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, is this the second one, I think? This is the second one, right, Becca? I think.
Yeah.
After Jessica Drew?
Jessica Drew is the one with the red costume. And then, what's her name? I can't remember her name.
I'll look it up.
Claire.
What'd you say, Josh?
Claire? Something.
I missed it.
Julia. Her name's Julia.
Julia. Okay.
I can't
Julia
believe
Carpenter. Julia Carpenter. Yeah.
Whoa.
So, yeah, I had that toy, actually.
Oh.
Was there a toy of her?
I mean, I definitely had one. I think it might have been from like the 90s Spider-Man animated series.
Gotcha. Okay.
But because love that show. But yeah, so like I love her introduction into the story where they were like halfway through, they're like, crap, we gotta throw her in.
Right. I know, it's and then Human Torch is like, hey, who are you? I'm Spider-Woman.
Okay.
And it just exactly. And the thing is like they could have kept it, and this is the one problem, is with the whole way that the symbiote and Venom and all that is introduced, they make it so complex. It could have just been, there's an alien life form that covers Spider-Man, it makes himself look kind of like the costume, but instead it's like, well, we have to explain why his costume is black and white, so let's introduce another character that has a black and white spider costume, and that Peter Parker gets the idea for his design from that. It's just, it's
except
like,
he didn't though. Like that's how they explain it. But he's like, "Oh, I guess I was thinking about something else." Like, Peter, you don't know what you were thinking about. No questions. Nobody. I understand like a lot's going on, but nobody questions it.
Right.
Nobody questions anything that happens. It's so frustrating that like, oh, Wasp is gone. Oh, Colossus is gone. Oh, Spider-Man's suit it reacts to his brainwaves.
I feel like if they started asking questions, the story would just completely fall apart. So they had to just like, run along.
It's such a dumb way for such a cool thing. Is
right,
the Spider-Man suit.
And you, go ahead, Becca.
No, go.
I was going to say, it also, I know that nowadays comic books are only created to be adapted into movies. And I'm not saying that they should have been conscious of that when they wrote the story, but I think it is important to keep things simple and keep things like, if you do want to adapt the story into any other medium, you have to go, okay, well now we're at the part of the story where Spider-Man gets a black costume, and oh, by the way, we got to figure out how to get him to the Beyonders battle world, and we got to figure out, and it's just, that's why in the movie Spider-Man 3, remember it was a meteor that came down, right? With like an alien fungus or something on it. So much easier.
So far they're like 0 for 2 on trying to write a good story where Spider-Man gets a black costume then. You're right.
Yeah, because the Venom movie was not great, that's for sure.
So we got the Venom movie. Not great. Loved it. Not great. Spider-Man 3. Not great. Secret Wars. Not
Loved
great.
it. Yeah, love Spider-Man 3.
You're the only person.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, so now
when he backhands his girlfriend, just like Hank Pym.
Favorite scene. Okay, so let's actually, again, we don't have all night, so we can't talk about every issue, but let's just talk about the actual issue where Peter Parker gets the alien costume, okay? Josh, do you have the page there where he actually gets that costume?
Yeah, I've got it up right now. The shorts one?
Because it's... What's that?
The one where he's in the shorts?
Josh, that's it. No, not that one.
Oh, okay.
No, just the one where he actually gets the costume.
Yeah. The whole page.
I love the cover.
Yeah.
I love the cover. Amid the
cover's
chaos,
great.
there comes a costume.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
How
not a
very-
good tagline.
Yeah.
Josh, just so I know, how do I see the stream? I'm sitting here and we can.
You can
How do
open up
I see-
YouTube. Open up YouTube and watch the stream.
Can
Make sure
I watch
you,
it? Can I
Yeah.
watch it?
Yeah, make sure you mute it though. Because
Oh no, I'm already doing that. Okay, so you got the page up here.
Yeah.
So this page, I want to read the page leading up to it because the Hulk and Thor have just come out of a room where they've discovered a machine that recreates Thor's cape and restores Hulk's ripped up purple pants. Like they're ripped up, but now they're ripped up better or something. I don't know. So then they're like, hey. So then Spider-Man's like, hey, Thor, your cape's back and your hat. I guess it's not a helmet, it's a hat. But how? Unless you've got a haberdasher who makes fortress calls. 'Twas the Hulk's doing, using a wondrous device he discovered. It's in there, Spider-Man. You just think into it and it produces any sort of cloth or clothing you want. Great, new threads, without stabbing my thumb with a needle, thanks. So then Spider-Man walks into this room. Hey, Hulk, which of these gizmos is it? Must be this one. It looks like it wants to make me a costume. Guess I can just concentrate? And now there's this little black ball there. Huh? What the heck is that? And why is it making my spider sense tingle? Maybe I better get rid of, hey, it's going up my arm. What is this stuff? And then we get the big splash page that Josh has up, right, of the costume.
I'll be an 8-balls uncle.
Such a rascal, that Spider-Man.
I feel like whenever they have Spider-Man in like big team-ups, they make him just like a doofus. Like he's so
You're
dumb.
totally right.
Like
because nobody knows how to write his witticisms, right?
Right. Yeah, he just
Except,
becomes like
like,
a little
two
kid,
people.
which is fine if that's his character. Like if he's in high school and he's like acting more like a kid amongst these adults, but at this point he's in college. Like he's an adult just like the rest of them, and it just seems weird.
Yeah, I don't know how you acted when you were 19, though, but I acted just like this. A big idiot, so...
Yeah, that's true.
And I was getting good grades, just like Peter, but big idiot.
Yeah, I guess...
Still.
Yeah, maybe... I agree. I don't want him to be like, you know, super heroic like Captain America, but like, I feel like they really, really dumb him down when he's in a group.
That's true. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, whoever the guy writing this thinks that comedic relief is just being dumb, which you can be smart and funny. Hello, I'm right here. I'm totally kidding, but like you can write Spider-Man as a smart guy who is witty, but instead he's got the same humor as like the Thing, and it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Here, I also want to comment. The cover to number 8 is excellent. I think it's great. It's a classic cover. This splash page with Spider-Man getting the costume is not good. And the
You don't like it?
It's just so inconsistent. The art, it's not terrible, but it's not great. I know that Mike Seck was rushed. They had a fill-in artist for a couple issues. This is just not a good page. I don't know. Do you guys have any opinions about this?
He do got that booty though. So the panel underneath the big splash one, they really emphasize the butt, and
They
I
even got like some
appreciated it.
wiggle lines around the butt too, which was nice. Like a nice touch.
He's got those gams, Spidey gams. Spider-Man's. Someone had a big crush on Spider-Man drawing this because like they just like give him like he's the sexy abs butt.
Dump truck.
He's probably the hottest guy in the whole comic, save perhaps Thor
Or Molecule Man.
or Molecule Man. Yeah, right.
Because brains are sexy too.
Brains are sexy too.
So-
Also, Doom's hot in this one too. Sorry, I'm just.
No, that's okay. Yeah, he that happens later, right? We finally get to see his handsome visage, right?
Yeah, we do.
Now that we've got the second most important thing of the night out of the way, let's talk about the most important thing, and that's Spidey's summerwear. This is hilarious. Peter Parker discovers that he can retract the alien symbiote to the point that he is sleeveless and legless.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know
maybe.
why Spider-Man didn't use this look more often, but I mean, there's got to be times in New York when it's hot. But why didn't he just use this, right?
Maybe
don't
summer 1985 wasn't like particularly, or maybe summer 1986 wasn't like a scorcher.
Anyway, it's just funny that. Now I got to point out though, even though we are, giggling at this, it's actually something that, if you think about it, why don't superheroes have more weather-appropriate variations in their costumes, right?
Mhm.
Half the women are in bikinis all the time. It doesn't matter.
So theoretically, there should be a male character to go along with those bikinis, right? Like there should be a superhero like this. Why not?
Hercules.
Yeah, I guess he kind of is.
Mm.
So anyway,
The
This
Hulk's
outfit-
just wearing torn pants, like a homeless man.
Point to Joey.
so
I would
here's the
argue that
thing.
the homeless are more clothed than the Hulk.
This is the point where the story runs out. This is also the point where G.I. Jolie stopped reading, as far as I know. Is that true, Jolie? You read one more?
After that, and then I
Okay.
jumped to 12.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say, I know that everyone's tuned in for an in-depth discussion of this, but I confess fully that I could not finish this series. And when I got to about number 4, I started skim reading. Once I got past number 8, I was doing one of these. Like I was just looking at the art. This is not a well-written series. It certainly doesn't deserve to be 12 issues. But we've just hit number 8. We still have to quickly summarize what happens in the rest of the story. Josh, do you remember how this series ends?
So
And what?
they start going after Galactus because Galactus is bringing his machine over because he wants to destroy Battleworld. So at one point it turns to trying to stop Galactus, but like everybody's kind of like divided up into these different divisions. We've got the superhero, like the heroes, so that's like the Avengers, Fantastic Four, X-Men, and then X-Men also. The X-Men try to like split off into their own group at some point, and Spider-Man catches them, and that turns into like a fight in and of itself. And then Magneto.
And then Professor Xavier has like a mental breakdown about
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Xavier is such a dick in this story.
He's such a dick.
He's the
But here's
worst.
the thing. He has, just to be clear, Professor X has erased people's memories starting in X-Men number 1. This is something he does on a daily basis. So what was he so guilty about? Is that what you're talking about, his guilt?
It's everything. It's him erasing Spider-Man's memory. It's him like trying to get the X-Men to leave the Avengers. It's doubting Storm as the leader of the X-Men.
Right.
Storm is the leader of the X-Men at this point, and he's still coming in to be like, nah, you're doing this all wrong. And Storm has to like
Right.
put him in check. Like he's such an asshole in this story.
Yeah.
He sucks.
Literally in the next issue he's like, well, I can still lead. Doesn't mean like just because I'm a this doesn't mean I can't lead. And literally in the next issue when there's a fight, he is rendered useless because
Immediately.
he can't walk into battle with the rest of them. And he's like, he can't communicate with everybody. He can't see into the minds of the enemy. And it's like, okay, cool. Guess you're just a dick for no reason.
Yeah. And he cock-blocked Colossus twice.
Uh-huh.
Kitty Pryde and then the alien woman. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to live his life.
Colossus and the alien were making out under the tree, and things were getting spicy. And then, of course, Professor X has to show up in his mind.
Just throw a big old tank of milk on that.
Well, like, it's a weird story when Magneto is understandable and the nice one, and Professor X is just like a complete douchebag.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the other thing is he treats Storm so poorly, and it's like I get it. Every woman in this story is treated poorly, but like she's the leader, and she's also freaking Storm. So like, back up, buddy. Do you know who you're talking to? Literal goddess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the
Men.
thing is that there was a lot of resistance at this time. Like, for example, Roger Stern was really trying to make Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, like a strong character, but he was kind of undermined by Mark Grenwald wanting to make Captain America the leader again of the Avengers. And Chris Claremont was trying to make Storm a strong character, but as we can see here, he was undermined by Jim Shooter. So again, this is Marvel 1985. We've got this story with virtually every single Marvel superhero, and we've only got like 2 women. Mm-hmm. It's kind of ridiculous, right? So,
and even Monica Rambeau at one point is rendered, she just is frozen in light.
Right.
So we just let her stand there and do nothing. And the whole time she does nothing. She just looks around for people. She just does what Iron Man tells her to do.
Yeah.
They even send her away at one point to just kind of like be a scout, and she's like, okay.
Yeah.
Isn't she like one of the most powerful people there?
Yeah, and the leader of the Avengers.
Yeah, exactly.
At this time, was she though? I'm trying because Janet was, right?
I don't know. She wasn't. Wasp was.
Right.
But of course, because they're on a special mission, they have to let Captain America take over. And I want to point out that even though Storm's the leader of the X-Men, even Cyclops, remember, in one of these issues, is like, well, maybe I should take over since the stakes are so high. We can't trust Storm. I should take over.
You know what, Scott? Whatever. Shut up.
Yeah.
Get over yourself. And he's talking about how Jean married him. Like, ugh, girl.
Anyway, that's another episode. Let's quickly talk about how the, quote, story wraps up. I read it. I don't remember. The heroes are all dead. Then they're back in Denver. Back in Denver. There's a water spirit in a bathtub.
Dr. Doom ends up fighting the Beyonder and absorbing his powers. Like that's what pretty much this entire story is about. It's really Dr. Doom's story at the end of the day. At least I think so. I think he's pretty much the main character and the person that we're following, the only one that has any sort of arc at all.
Right.
So he gets all of the powers that he's wanted. He could pretty much do anything. And the first thing he does is he destroys all of the superheroes after like trying to get them to like join him. They all refuse, and so he destroys them. And then Ulysses Claw, who has weirdly reappeared. There's like this weird side story where he because he's made out of sound. He was absorbed by Dazzler in her story, and in this one we find out that she used sound to fight Galactus, I think, or somebody, and then so like Ulysses was like trapped in somebody else, and then on Battle World he ended up like reforming or something. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Ulysses Claw is there, and there's like a tiny little bit of the Beyonder inside of Ulysses Claw now, because like whatever energy was left of the Beyonder was like bouncing from character to character trying to get to Dr. Doom. So Ulysses Claw kind of puts this doubt into Dr. Doom's mind, like you destroyed the Avengers, but you really didn't actually just disintegrate them or stop their existence. You like put a bomb and exploded their headquarters, leaving their bodies there so that way there was a chance that they would come back. You did that because you subconsciously wanted them to stay alive. And he keeps like putting this doubt in his mind, and the Avengers end up coming back to life. And it's unclear if it's the Beyonder or if it's Dr. Doom's subconscious. I don't know if they leave that intentionally ambiguous or if it's supposed to be.
Or it's just bad writing.
But then...
And that's the thing is, we don't see that moment. It's just, they're just there, right? The heroes are just there.
Yeah.
Well, they describe it kind of like how the alien woman, she comes like... and heals them at the cost of her own life or whatever.
Right.
Like,
yeah, she heals Colossus, who then drags the Human Torch into a healing pod because he's the only one that can survive like an explosion. So the Human Torch is healed, and then with the help of the Human Torch, Colossus and Human Torch start dragging the rest of the bodies and throwing them in those healing tubes that everybody else was in, and then slowly everybody starts coming back.
Yeah, because I think it's right before the explosion happens, Colossus doubted all of them, so he goes into like steal mode because they're currently voting on whether or not they should all go attack Doom, and he politely waits until they vote to yes attack him before he attacks them.
Yeah, it's sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's just dumb. I was just gonna say it's dumb.
That's just exactly what I was gonna say. I'm like, it's just kind of dumb. But Captain America ends up facing off against Doom, and it's actually almost like the Doctor Strange movie with like, I've come to bargain. Captain America just kind of like keeps reforming and running for Doctor Doom, and he just like every time he like explodes him, Captain America just comes back, and Ulysses is like watching this happen, and they don't explain how he keeps coming back. So again, I'm not sure if it's Doctor Doom making Captain America like come back, and it's his subconscious not wanting him to die, and like him not being able to control his powers, or if it's the little bit of the Beyonder that's in Ulysses making him come back. Does it matter? No, not really.
No,
it doesn't matter.
No.
So anyway.
No. So yeah, Doctor Doom ends up. I don't even remember.
he dies.
Right.
It's like a.
Yeah,
It's some comic book expiatory bullshit.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
what
much.
it is.
Yeah.
I mean, all the heroes end up coming back, and at this point, the supervillains have all left because Doctor Doom, who has now pretty much become God, has given Molecule Man the ability, or at least like made him realize he has the ability to manipulate living matter, not just non-living matter. So he actually creates a bubble over Denver and just makes Denver float back to Earth and just like slots back into the hole. Then Mr. Fantastic also comes up with a way to transport them back through science.
They don't explain that one, do they?
No, it's science. They do. It's because of science. But
they all take a ride in his like parachute body? Is that not what they're doing?
Maybe. I don't remember. I don't know. At this point, it was so hard to get through. Everything is just kind of a blur. The beginning issues stuck more with me, and then by the end of it, I'm just like, I'm reading what's happening, but nothing is actually staying in my head.
It's sinking in.
Yeah.
They also set up. They further. They show that Spider-Man is sort of curious about, like he does realize something's different about how everyone's costumes were restored, but his, for some reason, just responded to his thoughts and no one else's did. So, but again, at this point in the comic, that story had already come and gone. So it's cool, but really, what's the point, right?
Yeah. But here's the thing. We don't even know if he even used the right or correct machine. We still don't even know. The right.
Sorry.
Yeah, like I think the idea is definitely he didn't, because he didn't use any machine. What he saw as a black blob that he thought was part of this machine, we know later is the alien symbiote, which becomes Venom. It's just that the story was developed over so much time that it's not obvious at this point that that's what's going on.
To me,
I'm gonna ask a dumb question, but sorry.
No,
but
go ahead.
They never explained why there's a symbiote on this planet, right? Like that's just it's
No.
just from another world that got spliced. Okay, cool. Because I was trying to figure it out.
I mean, even
they don't ever explain it. No.
Even the origin of the symbiote wasn't like created until recently. Like that's a new thing that there's like they actually show and tell what the symbiote planet is, and they actually go there. I think the Guardians go there at some point, but that's really recent. Like that was like 2014, 2015. I think that's around
like the last like 5 years.
Yeah. So yeah, I always assumed that the symbiote was not part of that machine, and it was just it just happened to be walking in the room.
Right.
It just so happened to be kind of like, minding its own business before seeing Spider-Man and then attaching itself to him.
We mercifully get the end of the story here, where the Thing is left on the Beyonder world. Again, I did read the FFs from around this time, but I don't remember exactly how this is resolved. I know that Ben Grimm eventually comes back. But I guess it was kind of cool to set up the She-Hulk as a fill-in for a few years at least. That was kind of a cool thing, right?
Yeah.
Shake up the status quo.
Is it a setup though? She just goes, "Oh, I'll do it."
I'll do. Yeah.
Well, when I say set up, I mean they kind of explained it. Yeah.
Nothing happens in this whole story, and then the last 3 pages, everything happens. Like,
Good point.
You're already at 12 issues. Just do another one. Just kind of, just a couple more pages.
Right.
Just explain it a little bit.
Cut out some of the other junk. I mean, I don't even think they really show She-Hulk teaming up with the Fantastic Four at all. Like, even that would be enough of an explanation for me. Like, show them, like, teaming up to take down a villain. Because at some point, Doom summons a bunch of monsters, I think, to keep all of the other superheroes busy while Cap and him have that face-off. So just, like, show the Fantastic Four with She-Hulk, like, working together to take down a bad guy or a monster or something. And then you can have that throwaway line of, hey, we really worked well as a team. Like, maybe I'll come hang out with you for a little while. Like, even that is something. She just is like, I think I'll join the Fantastic Four now. And they're like, yup. Sounds about good.
And she has the outfit already.
Yeah. It's just not great.
So...
And then they just leave Ben on the planet, and it has Mr. Fantastic, I think I don't remember exactly where the line is, I'm trying to find it. But he's just like, maybe I should tell Ben that it's all in his head. Nah, he'll figure it out on his own. Anyway, peace. Like, it's so mean. Because the reason why he keeps turning back is it has to do with the beyond or the planet, right? Like, he desires, like, you can be your true self or whatever garbage, not really a reason.
Right.
So, like, as soon as he comes back to Earth, he will not be able to transform back into Ben Grimm. But nobody, and Mr. Fantastic knows this. Reed is a dick.
I mean, even Captain
Everyone
America
in this
doesn't say
comic is a
anything.
dick.
Right? Because at this point, Captain America has realized that there's something going on with this planet where, like, if you will something into existence enough, it'll actually happen. And that's what happened earlier on with the Thing just automatically turning into into like his human form, because that's something that Ben has always wanted. Like, he's like, throughout his entire, like, origin, his entire story, like, everything is kind of about him feeling sorry for himself being this monster. So him just randomly turning back, that's kind of their explanation of, like, how that happened, is he just willed it into existence. Because we see Captain America, his shield is broken, and he talks about how there's no way for it to possibly be fixed because he doesn't have the technology to melt the metal, and there's no, like, amount of heat that can remelt the vibranium to fix the shield. So he just touches the shield and all the broken parts and hopes enough that it'll come, it'll form back into its original integrity, and it's just, like, back to normal now.
I quickly point out, if we don't already love Mark Waid enough, Mark Waid took that little germ of an idea and brought it back in Captain America like 20 years later in his second run, and turned that into a story. So I think that, you got to love Mark Waid for things like that. But anyway, so he actually made Secret Wars better than it is by doing that story. But anyway, so
I feel like Marvel spent the next 35, 40 years trying to make Secret Wars better than it was.
I think you're right. You're right. They keep going back to this well, right? Going back to this well. And they actually, the first thing they did was they did Secret Wars 2 a year later, which we'll be reviewing in about 9 weeks. Julie, did you want to briefly talk about the other Secret War or Secret Wars that happened after this one?
Hey, Mike, actually, sorry to interrupt.
Secret Wars is
just to interrupt real quick, Mike, do you want to, like, jump out of Discord and then jump back in again? You're really lagging behind again.
Lagging?
Yeah, while Jolie is chatting, just, like, leave and come back.
See ya.
Oh, okay.
Or don't.
So yeah,
That happens so rapidly.
Yeah, it like
okay.
Yeah.
So Secret Wars 2, unless he needs to hear this as well, but I mean,
we can keep going.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Secret Wars 2, the Beyonder visits Earth. Oh God. Because it needed to happen.
Right.
And so he visits Earth, but instead of being like a limited series of 12 issues called Secret Wars 2 or whatever, he crosses over into every Marvel hero title in publication at that time. And that's the sequel to this.
And we are going to review it, and it's not awesome. But yeah.
I feel like it's going to be like a Marvel team-up situation.
Big one, yeah.
And a little gremlin man?
And then...
Isn't he just like a little gremlin man when he's on Earth?
No, he's...
No, he's basically Don Johnson from Miami Vice.
He's hot.
Yeah, a little gremlin.
Dark flowing hair and a big white jumpsuit.
Oh, that Don Johnson.
A big white jumpsuit. Ugh, gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Elvis. So anyway, they do Secret Wars Part 3, which is in 2 issues of Fantastic Four in 1988 by Steve Englehart and our friend Keith Pollard.
Yep. Great story.
But it's not like it's just in that book, right? They're like backups.
Right.
Okay.
Well, no, yeah, it's just one off and one and done. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I didn't really get what happened in those Secret Wars 3. Must not have been much since no one decided they'd put a synopsis up on fandom.com. And then we skip right from 1988 to 2010 when they do Spider-Man and the Secret Wars, which was published in their Marvel's youth imprint, Marvel Adventures. And it tells the it tells the story of the original Secret Wars, which is what we're unfortunately talking about now, but from the point of view of Spider-Man, because kids love Spider-Man. Unfortunately, it's just like ripe with inconsistencies and discrepancies against the original story. Things like Spider-Man getting the Beyonder's powers and creating some cockamamie place called New Parker City, as well as, quote, other terrible ideas. So,
Love
yeah.
That. Around what year was that?
2010.
Oh, okay, that's extremely... Okay.
Yeah, it's like recent. Well...
Okay. Yeah, because...
It's 2020, so within the last 10 years.
The reason why I asked...
It feels recent, but it's 10 years ago, yeah.
I know in the 90s Spider-Man TV show, they actually do Secret Wars as well.
Oh, and it's already being penciled into our schedule. Believe me, we'll be reviewing it at some point.
Because I definitely watched that.
Yeah. Well, the thing... Yeah, okay. So, jump to 5 years later, 2015.
I know this one. Sorry.
Yeah.
I read this one.
Right. Everyone read this one. So, it's by Jonathan Hickman and Isaac Ribbit. Yes. Where they take what I think is the best part of the idea of Secret Wars, and they use it to remold and hit a reset button on the Marvel universe. So everything created in by the Ultimate line, the Marvel 2099, those 2 imprints, Marvel 1602, that universe, as well as the storylines of House of M and Age of Apocalypse. Everyone, again, from all of those are transported back to Battle World, and they're pitted against each other in like a battle royale, largely viewed as a reset button. So whoever gets out alive, that's the new Marvel universe. Fun fact is that the Ultimate End storyline by Bendis and Bagley, which was Marvel's way of writing out and ending the Ultimates line, was accidentally alluded to and leaked by the Ultimates artist David Finch on our show, The Comic Book Syndicate.
And David Finch got in a lot of trouble for that, right?
Yes.
Did he really? Oh.
Yeah.
How many views did that video get?
A lot.
Good.
Yeah.
Several thousand. It was our first semi-viral video. But
and it was one of those things that while it was happening, we were all sitting there watching it, the words come out of David Finch's mouth and going, I wonder how drunk he is. because that's really important and no one knows. I was like, oh, they're ending the Ultimates line? That's crazy. That's a really popular line.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was still, in my opinion, 10 or 15 years too late because it went on too long. Anyway, I hate the Ultimates line, but let's talk about Secret Wars for a minute.
And that,
we haven't even touched. We haven't talked about the art. So that's the history of Secret Wars. So they did strip mine a little bit. Brian Michael Bendis tried to come back and say that the Beyonder was not actually a god. He was an Inhuman that thought he was a god, and then Jonathan Hickman rebooted, or he retconned his retcon. Thanks, John Hickman. I mean, this is not a great story, but there's no reason to go back and rewrite it, in my opinion. We haven't really talked about the art at all. Go ahead, Becca.
I was just going to say, there is one more Secret Wars spin-off that Jolie didn't mention. It's
which is?
Deadpool's Secret Wars.
Right. Where you find out he was actually on the planet.
He was there the whole time, and he also may get made out with Wasp.
Oh my god.
Did he also bone the healer witch?
No, I don't think so. I don't think anything really is mentioned besides like Magneto making out with Wasp and the fact that Deadpool was just also there the whole time.
That's funny.
Creepy.
It's like 4 or 5 issues. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of funny. I want to go I remember reading that back when it came out forever ago, and I was like, oh, this is kind of funny. I forget who wrote it. Hold on. Yeah.
If you get a chance, read, what is it called? Deadpool Secret Wars?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably better than this. We haven't talked about the art at all. I know that we're running out of time here, but I'll just say briefly that Mike Zeck is one of my favorite artists. This is not his best work. As we said, Jim Shooter did force him to redraw pages to make them more like plain and kind of straight on. There are a few really good pages. I don't know, Josh, if you have those, but there's like a really good shot of Galactus after he's been knocked over by Doctor Doom that kind of just shows how perfect his perspective and his anatomy is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, did you guys have any opinions of the art, good or bad, that you want to talk about? Or am I the only one that liked it here, or what?
It was nice to look at when I was tired of reading the garbage.
I will say about specifically that Galactus image, I also had something to say about that. It is very, very good, except for the fact that Galactus did put his shoes on backwards. He did put them on the wrong feet.
You're right.
He did put them on the wrong feet.
You're totally right. Yeah.
If that doesn't define this whole 12 issue.
Wow, very good, but seems a little backwards.
You're totally right.
You're right, Becca.
Mm-hmm. It's like a pebble in your boot, or the feeling of having the wrong shoe on the wrong foot. Oh,
and you're an infinitely tall, monstrous being. It feels just like that.
Yeah, just being belittled by another being whose ass you should have been able to kick, but is ignoring you. God, he just was so.
Senpai, notice me.
Right? He was so emo about it.
The art is good, but it's also very rushed. Sometimes very sketchy, right? Especially when you compare it to, like, okay, I'm going to be honest. George Perez. I love George Perez. I think Mike Zeck is a better artist than George Perez, but George Perez's art on Crisis and Infinite Earths is so polished, and there's so much thought put into the storytelling. And so, just for effort alone, George Perez, I think he trumps Mike Zeck as far as art.
Someone like George Perez wins for scenes with more than 5 characters in it. The compositions are just richer and more beautiful, more beautifully arranged. The poses of the characters are more dynamic, and here they're just characters fighting on a background, if there's a background. Like, it's just not remarkable, but it's not so terrible that it's like glaringly terrible. Sometimes it's like, you know, when it's got to be sexy, when we got like that puddle coming out of the bathtub and she's just like booty up.
That panel was ridiculous.
Did you put that one in here?
When you fall out of the bathtub, don't you put your hands down first?
Always.
But yeah,
Especially when I'm a water nymph.
I also put my ass up too. When
Now,
I
did you
fall out
guys
of the
know-
bathtub.
Did you guys notice that there was at least 2 more pages guest drawn by a completely different artist, number 12? Like, they're
Yeah.
drastically different style. Did you notice that? Because none other than Art Adams, this
Uh-oh.
through a couple of the pages
Mike,
in
you cut
number
out
12.
there for a quick sec.
And I sent it to you, Josh.
Hey, Mike, you cut out there for
You
a
got
quick
them
sec. You cut out for a quick sec if you want to
What's
repeat
that?
yourself.
Oh, I cut out?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So Art Adams, in actually one of his first comic assignments, guest starred on a few of these pages.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a drastically different artist than Mike Zeck. Did you guys notice that at all?
I didn't really.
No.
No.
I was just wanted it to be over.
Yeah, to be honest, I was...
well, during the flip through,
Josh,
I
do
mean,
you have those pages?
What pages are they? What's going on them in them?
I labeled them Art Adams 1 and 2. Yeah. If you just take a look at them, they are so different. I don't know. I mean, they stood out to me.
What's on the pages that are different?
It's when they're fighting the monsters. It's in number 12 when they create those monsters for them to fight.
I don't have them up here. I can pull them up. I'll share
Okay.
my screen real quick.
oh, here we
Okay.
go. Art Adams.
Okay.
The inking's different. The inking is more
Completely, yeah.
illustrative.
Totally see it. I'll pull them up right now for the viewers here. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Oh, I found them. Just gotta
Yeah.
I see.
I'll make them larger there. Yeah.
Yeah, I
can
mean,
totally see them.
I love Art Adams. Actually, I prefer early Art Adams, but this is completely different from Mike Zeck's style. So
Oh, these two here.
I don't know. Any opinions on this, or is it just more crap?
I needed to get these issues out.
Get
Get this one done. It's done.
It's.
Yeah,
I
they're
think the
like-
splash page is fun.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I like Art Adams. I prefer his early work, so this is actually really good. It's just nothing like Mike Zeck.
Wait just a darn second. Is that
So-
supposed to be the Hulk?
Yeah, that is the Hulk.
Why's he got hair on him? On like the grass on his shoulders and wrists? And did that happen?
Oh, you know what?
Did I miss that?
Yeah, I don't know. I have to go back and look at the actual issue, but I don't know what is going on there.
Oh,
I don't remember that
he's
happening.
not. He doesn't have those in the previous panel.
Yeah, I don't
So-
remember that.
That's. I mean, if you go to the page right before
Yeah.
and right after, it doesn't match at all.
What?
That's what I mean. It's a complete mess. And then you also got to wonder,
Wait.
why did this one page make all the difference that they had to get Art Adams to come in?
You know-
Unless maybe, you know what? Maybe that's not the Hulk. Maybe that's a monster.
I was gonna
No,
say,
I'm gonna go with it's a monster.
I think so too.
You know what?
It's got
His
I think they
three
miscolored.
fingers. Yeah.
mandible is different.
Right, you're right. They miscolored like
Yeah.
maybe the blue monster as the Hulk. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Either way, okay. I don't know what to say. So we've talked about the art. We've talked about the story. I don't know what to say about this other than it's a giant cluster fun. I could barely get through it. I don't ever want to read it again. So I can definitely
Yeah.
say that I do not recommend this at all. Josh, what do you think?
I don't know. I don't
I mean,
think
for fun, maybe.
Yeah, it is fun. I think there's a lot of fun things
Mm-hmm.
happening. I think if you're looking for a deep story, stay away from this. There's not a lot of brains going on here, but if you're just looking for like some popcorn
Right.
fun, it's really good to just thumb through. Particularly the stuff with Doctor Doom. Stop and read what's going on with Doctor Doom. That's really fun. I mean, even some of the stuff with Galactus, I think that his introduction is super fun too. Like, they bring all these supervillains and they all like into this new world, and they're talking to each other. And Ultron is like this huge threat and starts like threatening to kill everybody, and all the villains kind of stop in their tracks and are completely terrified of Ultron. Galactus just like pretty much snaps a finger and destroys him immediately, which is like kind of like intimidating and just shows how powerful Galactus is. And then right after that, Galactus is like, F this, I'm out of here, and tries to escape, and then Galactus is taken down, which kind of like shows you the scope of what's going on and how doomed everybody is on this planet, that they really don't have any hope. If Galactus can't escape, how are they going to escape? So it kind of, I think, sets up the intensity of the situation. Not that they ever really go in depth with that intensity, but I think it, I think there's some fun to be had here. And I think that it's because of also like how historic it is too, and like iconic. I would recommend it in that sense, but I think as a story I would not. So I don't know if that exactly is a recommend or not, but that's kind of my gist of this story arc.
G.I. Jolie, what do you think?
If you read recently the Secret Wars that happened and you care what happened before that, I guess you could read this. It's not terrible. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It wasn't like a terrible read. I thought some of it was really fun. Like some of the humor really hit, and like, I snorted a little bit. I think it's worth the history to read it. At least until you get up to the black suit Spidey, and then you can skip right to the end where nothing makes sense anymore, because nothing made sense the whole time anyway. So yeah. I mean, yeah. We really
Lex Luthor. Sorry, go ahead, Julie.
Well, it's like we pretty much covered like, all your bases. Like Doom makes broads out of thin air. Like Magneto is a G. Summerwear for Spidey. Like those are all the points that needed to be hit. Mm-hmm. And it's funny how none of them have to do with like the plot. Like so none of the villains are able to destroy the heroes. So the Beyonders like ho hum. Anyway,
Lex Luthor, what do you think?
Yeah, it's just it's a weird one. Definitely historically significant for the Marvel Universe. It feels like you had all of these points that needed to be retconned or fixed for the Marvel Universe. So we had to make sure Colossus wasn't going to get married. We had to put She-Hulk in the Fantastic Four. We had to get Spider-Man his black suit. We had to make sure everyone knew that the Wasp sucked. I don't know. But like they had like this list of things that needed to change about what was currently going on in the Marvel Universe. None of it had anything to do with each other, but they had to shove it all into one series. So that's what they did. And they're like, what if they all got teleported to an island? And then we just did plot, and then plot happened, and then we move on. It's interesting. It's a very interesting read, and it's very interesting to see where Marvel was in 1985 on a because on one hand you have two very strong women of color in your story, but on the other hand they do nothing with them, and they're like, and it's disrespectful in a sense that they do nothing with them. So you can really see where Marvel's head was at in the 80s. They're like, we'll have black women, but they just won't be any sort of significance to the plot, and that's what you get. Which makes sense for where most people were, unfortunately. Just from if you're interested in the history of comic books and the history of that kind of stuff, you want to make sure you're reading the things that changed stuff, right? Like, we read a lot of issues that are just like single issues, just like fluff and stuff like that, and that's all fun, but they don't really change the game, right? So this is kind of like, oh, Marvel's getting into the game, and then they go bankrupt but we're not talking about that though, because
Right,
what
right.
year does that happens like very shortly, right?
No, like 10 years later. 10 years later.
10 years later.
There's no direct correlation between the two. In fact, this was a huge sales success. So there's definitely, if anything, this boosted Marvel, in sales and success and all that stuff. So
they did this, and then they did something wrong. So if this is what was right,
yes.
I don't know. It's just reading through it and finally actually reading it from start to finish was interesting, because it did bring back like, oh, I know this, and I know this, and I know of this, and I know why this, and then you just kind of, it doesn't get pieced together, but like then, I don't know. It's like a really crappy breakup, and your boyfriend just goes, oh, I just don't love you anymore, and you're like, that's not really closure, but I guess it is. That's what this feels like. But it does.
Ooh, okay.
It does have one of my favorite comic book panels of all time in issue 1. It's where is it? It's when.
Oh, it's not Spidey in a bikini?
No, it's one of my favorite lines ever written, actually, and it's Magneto, and he is yelling at all the heroes because he got placed with the heroes because he's a man of good morals. But he gets placed with them, and they're like, obviously Magneto's a bad guy, like, what is he doing here? And he says, I am homo superior. I stand above you all. Save perhaps Thor. And it's just one of my favorite things.
Again, it's just,
and
I
laugh
that.
so hard. And then they also do a callback to it later. I don't remember what issue it is, but it's Storm, and it's everyone looking up at Storm as she's like doing cool stuff because she's Storm. And everyone goes, and the heroes are humbled by her massive power. Save perhaps Thor. And it's just like, okay, like
both times Thor is like not
mentioned.
even around.
No, he like Magneto is like, nobody can disrespect me. Nobody's better than me except maybe Thor. And then even Storm, she's like, I'm the best at weather except maybe Thor. Like,
I mean,
everyone's got a big crush on Thor, and I get it.
Thor couldn't even be bothered to be in the story when
James
they tried to
Shooter,
include
folks.
him. Like, he's just like, I think the Avengers are being attacked, or they're like locking up some bad guys, and he's just like, I think I'm gonna go talk to the Enchantress and just let her out, and the two of us are gonna go chill in another dimension. And they just like pop out of the story for a little while. Like, he just does his own thing.
And then she's just like, oh, I love you, Thor. And he's like, okay, cool.
That's nice.
He even says it too. He's like, I think we've been gone for a while. Maybe we should head back and see what's up. I'm like, yeah, you think?
We've been laying under this tree
Like, where are
snuggling
you?
for a while, huh?
Yeah, that was truly some bit of story that I was like, is anyone writing it? Has the story taken itself over?
It's just a lot of questionable decisions where the story went. It's a 12-issue series. We answer none of the questions we bring up, but we still have so much unnecessary fluff. It makes me think they just did it as they went along. Like, it's such a strange, for as historically significant as it is, it's such a strange, bizarre mishmash of, like, comic book tropes and not great writing and just strangeness. Strange choice of characters, strange choice of plot, strange choice of what all the characters are doing.
Yeah. I think it's also just strange because Beyonder also seems to have like no motive. He's just like doing it because he's interested to see what'll happen. Like, by the end of it, he's kind of the good guy.
Right.
Like, he's not really doing this to be evil. Like, if he was just like manipulating everybody and messing with them the entire time to see what was going on, that would make more sense, I think, because like he could be like, okay, what's gonna happen if I drop this alien symbiote in that like feeds off of another person, and then that's where the Spider-Man suit can come in. What happens if I take away some of their powers? Boom, the thing is now human again. Like, it feels like things just happen now in the story, and even the Beyonders kind of like, hey, what happens. I made this messed up world. Now let's see how it plays out. It's like an awful game of Sims.
It's Big Brother Marvel Edition.
I would watch
That's
that.
what this comic is.
I would watch
Yeah,
that.
I would get.
I don't understand that reference. Sorry.
Anything
Big
would be
Brother's
better
a
than
TV
a
show.
season of All Stars.
Yeah, I know. Also, I have
It's
to
Big
point
Brother
out-
All Stars. Dr. Will just comes in. Like, what up,
Triple
Avengers?
eviction.
Okay,
Woo! Julie Chen, she's here.
but Will
Sorry,
is totally
Mike
the
has no idea
Doctor
what we're
Doom
talking about.
of Big Brother, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
What's that?
Will.
we're talking about Big Brother now.
Yeah.
So, I have to say one more quick thing before we wrap up. After Secret Wars was released, Carol Kalish, who was Marvel's direct sales manager, I think she was at a convention or something, and she announced the coming Marvel event, Secret Wars 2, and everybody booed her. Okay? So then her response was, okay, let's be honest. Secret Wars was crap, right? But did it sell? And that was her comeback.
Oh my-
So even she knew it was crap, and it was her job to sell Marvel Comics. So
Wow.
I think everyone except Jim Shooter. Jim Shooter was like the Donald Trump of Marvel at that time. He could not concede defeat.
Mm.
What's that, Julie?
Also, he hit women.
Yeah, yeah.
He grabbed
He had a
them right in the
Right,
pee.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast is not going to age well.
Yeah.
There's like a recount on Monday, and we're all like,
So,
crap.
So I guess that wraps up another live episode of Here Comes the Spider Cast, right,
so.
guys? I don't think we have anything else to say about this comic, do we?
I don't.
You
Have
think we've
anything else
milked
to
this
say.
one dry?
Uh,
So
I think we were missing
what's
a
that,
couple.
Bex?
We were mixing like a couple makeouts. Like somebody else made out with somebody else. I can't remember who.
There's probably many details that we glossed over, but again, at one point I was glossing over reading it, so I probably missed half the details, right?
Right. Well, if
The
there,
jokes were good sometimes.
that's true. If there is anything that we missed that you want us to talk about or you want to have that conversation, leave a comment in the YouTube, like down in the comments in YouTube, or you can send us a line over at HCT Spidercast on Twitter. Please let us know what you think about the episode, the issues that we're reading and talking about. We really want to keep that conversation going, so please keep in touch.
That's right. And next week on Here Comes the Spider Cast, we'll be back to audio only. We'll be diving into the continuing adventures of the alien symbiote as Peter Parker, struggles to discover the mystery of his new black costume. We would definitely want to thank G.I. Jolie for joining us. Thank you, Jolie.
You're
And we want to
very
thank-
welcome.
Yep, and we want to thank special guest Bex Luthor, who's always welcome to join us. You can pretty much just pop in any episode that you want and just join us for the review.
Just like show up, be like, "What up, guys? It's me, your boy. I didn't read this one this week, but I have opinions.
That's about
mostly-
as thorough as we get anyway. So
Yeah.
They're mostly about the mistreatment of women in comic books." But
there you go.
Many
So-
offenses to be pointed out.
Yeah, we need to
can we,
honestly
can we
hear
not
more
call
of that,
Jewish
to be
men
honest.
Hitler?
What's
You
that,
want-
Josh?
I was gonna say, yeah, no kidding.
You want a feminist perspective of your favorite old comics so I can ruin them? I'm here, girl. Here I am.
You're hired.
Perfect. Okay, looking forward to it. So hopefully
Just
Bex
make
will
all
be
the
back
men
again.
angry.
We know that G.I. Joe will be back, and every week you can hear Josh and I talking about Spidey on Here Comes the Spider Cast. So until next Monday, this has been Here Comes the Spider Cast.
All right, see you then.